of its COVID-19 vaccine by July. And that was announced this morning. The agreement brings the total number of doses to be delivered to the United States to 200 million, allowing for 100 million people to be vaccinated. Pfizer and German partner BioNTech will deliver at least 70 million doses by the 30th of June, with the balance of the 100 million doses to be delivered no later than the 31st of July. Dr. Anthony Fauci yesterday received his first dose of the coronavirus vaccine. And as a new strain of COVID runs rampant in the United Kingdom, now accounting for more than 60% of cases in London, many Americans have grown concerned that the mutated virus has touched down the states. There is evidence that the new strain of COVID has traveled to other countries abroad, but according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the new strain has not been identified through sequencing efforts in the United States. Texas health officials are outlining their plans for the next group of people who can receive the COVID-19 vaccine. And as U.S. industries push for their workers to receive early access, local health departments and pharmacies face the challenge of verifying the identity of essential workers to ensure no one cuts the line. India has joined a growing number of countries around the world in suspending travel to the UK in the wake of the emergence of a mutated variant of the coronavirus. And as the world struggles with the crisis, year-end festivities around the corner, and governments around the world have imposed restrictions on public gatherings and travel in a bid to curb the spread of the virus, while some individuals are coming up with innovative ideas to celebrate with their loved ones. President Trump has said he's asking for changes to the coronavirus relief bill passed by Congress, leaving the future of the $900 billion stimulus in doubt. His position could threaten to torpedo the carefully drafted bill, which his own administration helped negotiate, a move that could lead to a government shutdown and send the economy into tailspin if he does carry out with that veto. He rejected the massive COVID economic relief package passed by Congress, branding it a disgrace and an act of political brinkmanship. And after spending months on the sidelines while Congress tried to pass the relief bill, he finally inserted himself into the conversation last night and signaled he may not sign the $900 billion stimulus deal approved by Congress, describing parts of it as wasteful spending. He issued also a flurry of pardons yesterday and commutations to a slew of controversial figures with ties to his administration, in a move that further cements his legacy of exercising his sweeping powers to benefit his political allies. He has pardoned 4 former U.S. service members who were convicted in a 2007 massacre that killed more than a dozen Iraqis, including children, while working as black water contractors. And President Trump pardoned 15 people, including Republican allies, a 2016 campaign official ensnared in the Russian probe, and former government contractors convicted of that massacre in Baghdad. Alex Padilla will be California's next U.S. Senator, filling the vacancy left by Vice President Kamala Harris. Governor Gavin Newsom appointed California Secretary of State Alex Padilla to fill that Senate seat yesterday, choosing the first Latino in state history for the role. Mexico has been named as the most dangerous country for journalists worldwide. The number of deaths of journalists in Mexico makes up almost a third of all those killed this year. Joe Biden last night suggested he would launch retaliatory cyber attacks against Russia in the wake of the recent massive data breach of the U.S. government. President Putin signed laws granting former Russian presidents expanded immunity from prosecution and allowing them to become senators for life in the upper house of parliament once they leave the Kremlin. Kremlin-friendly political forces are making headway in Ukraine, and their leader says the time is ripe for further gains. Russia has sent an additional 300 military instructors to the Central African Republic to deal with what its ministry calls a sharp degradation of security. And the Israeli government collapsed last night after the country's parliament failed to meet a deadline for passage of the 2020-21 budgets. Israel will now head to its 4th election in 2 years, probably on the 23rd of March. UN Security Council members decided to end the joint UN-African Union peacekeeping force in Sudan's western Darfur region when the mission's mandate runs out at the end of the year. And the Central African Republic's 4th largest town, which was seized by rebels yesterday ahead of elections this weekend, is in the hands of United Nations peacekeepers and national security forces. The UN also appealed for $156 million to help the tens of thousands of refugees who have fled fighting in Ethiopia's Tigray region, again requesting full humanitarian access to the conflict-hit northern region. Turkey's parliament extended for 18 months a law that allows the deployment of Turkish troops to Libya. And President Erdogan has said that Turkey hopes to turn a new page in its ties with the United States and European Union. Dubai will start inoculating people with the COVID-19 vaccine produced by Pfizer and BioNTech for free from today. And it is joining Saudi Arabia, which last week became the first Arab country to begin using this vaccine. The United Arab Emirates' highest Islamic authority, the UAE Fatwa Council, has ruled that the coronavirus vaccines are permissible for Muslims even if they contain pork gelatin. The ruling follows growing alarm that the use of pork gelatin, a common vaccine ingredient, may hamper vaccination among Muslims. But if there are no alternatives, Council Chairman Sheikh Abdullah bin Bahya has said that the coronavirus vaccines would not be subject to Islam's restrictions on pork because of the higher need to protect the human body. The United Kingdom has found itself increasingly cut adrift from the outside world as countries took drastic action to stem a new mutant coronavirus strain from spreading worldwide. Things could feel less festive in Britain right now, as British Prime Minister Boris Johnson bungled the management of the country's COVID-19 pandemic over the course of the summer. This week, a more contagious strain raging in Britain as cases are soaring and deaths have topped 67,000. Britain and the European Union have still not clinched a Brexit trade deal as serious issues remain unresolved. And Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak is looking to his pandemic support programs to help out businesses in the event of a no-deal Brexit. The Salvation Army stepped in to feed drivers who were stuck on England's motorways. You're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. A Singaporean citizen who returned to the country from Japan became the first person in the world to use a digital COVID-19 health certificate for immigration purposes. And after managing against the odds to keep the virus largely in check for most of the year, Thailand has suddenly found itself challenged by an expanding outbreak among migrant workers on the doorsteps of the capital of Bangkok. The United States imposed additional visa restrictions on Chinese officials over alleged human rights abuses as China claimed its military had expelled a U.S. Navy destroyer after it trespassed into Chinese territorial waters close to the Spratly Islands in a fresh escalation of tensions between Washington and Beijing over the South China Sea. China's new carrier rocket, the Long March 8, made its maiden flight. The country's space agency report the first phase of a strategy to deploy launch vehicles that can be reused. Chinese ambassador to Nepal met Nepal's president at the presidential palace, Sheetal Nivas, and the hour-long meeting comes 2 days after the president signed off on Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli's recommendation to dissolve parliament. Indian Army Chief General Narawane visited areas on the southern bank of the Pangong Lake today and reviewed the situation along the line of actual control amid the standoff with China. India has today successfully test-fired a medium-range surface-to-air missile from Odisha, fired from a ground mobile launcher, the launch pad. And India's COVID-19 caseload rose by only 23,000 new infections reported in a day, led by declining average daily new cases and rising recoveries. Delhi recorded just 1,000 cases of the disease, even though Delhi's air quality continued to remain in the severe category. And on a day when protests against the centre's 3 agricultural laws entered day 28, Prime Minister Modi said he will interact with farmers from 6 different states on the 25th of December via video conferencing. Delhi's border crossing with Uttar Pradesh at Chilla and Ghazipur continued to remain closed today as hundreds of local farmers are making their way to Delhi. The BJP, meanwhile, has led in the Jammu region in the District Development Council polls in J&K, but though the party's performance not the sweep it might have expected. After the majority of the results election in Jammu and Kashmir out this morning, we do have the centre listening to the people's voice against the abrogation of Article 370. Police claim to have busted Jaish-e-Mohammed Modgil and arrested 6 people in that area in Avantipura. And the shooting of actor Rajnikant's upcoming Tamil film taking place in Hyderabad had to be halted after 8 crew members have tested positive for the coronavirus. Indian skipper Virat Kohli made a leap in the latest ICC Men's T20I player rankings released today. He moved up to the 7th spot. And determined to leave behind the embarrassing defeat in the series opener, the Indian team, under stand-in skipper Ajinkya Rahane, switched its focus to red ball cricket today. We also have England's 2-test tour of Sri Lanka next month, likely to go ahead despite concerns about the coronavirus. And Pakistan sustained another injury setback when all-rounder Shadab Khan was ruled out of the first test match against New Zealand due to a thigh injury. New Zealand have retained spinner Mitchell Santner in their test squad to face Pakistan in their 2-match series. Toronto police termed the death of Baloch rights activist Karima Baloch, who went missing over the weekend before being found dead, as non-criminal. And Pakistan is in the grip of a second wave of coronavirus that has maimed the country's already struggling healthcare system as winter sets in. Pollution and public apathy to the coronavirus are weighing heavily on Pakistan's limited healthcare system. And Pakistani scriptwriter, television host, satirist, humorist Anwar Maqsood has tested positive for the coronavirus. President Alvi sought the opinion of the Supreme Court holding the Senate elections through open ballot and show of hands, as Prime Minister Imran Khan today said the government will provide Islamabad police officials with health cards and